Hi, and welcome to episode 154 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. This will be a little bit of a different show. I am not going to show you kind of what I am working on right now. It's going to be all finished projects. Some of them, in my mind, are epically finished projects, but some of them are a little bit smaller scale, and I'll start out with one of those. So what's off my needles is I finished my Soothe You. And here she is. She's all finished. She has her little shawl. We'll take that off for now. But the last time I recorded, I was working on her. I don't think I had started the legs or anything, but here she is. This is a pattern by Rita O'Connell. It's published by Three Kittens, and I bought the kit for this from Blackberry Ridge. It uses their sport weight wool, and I don't know if it's going to show up, but she's got a mistake stitch rib fleece, and then I love her little frilly legs. I just think they're so cute. But it is it's a lot of fun to do. I will say Sam was more fun to do than she was because he was all cables. So kind of like in the middle of her body, after I got all of her little tail shaping done, it got a little, mistake stitch rib is a little monotonous. But once I got past that, and then you have to do her legs, and everything is kind of sewn together. It's a lot of, grafting in pattern, but the pattern is very nicely written, and she gives you kind of options. So she, when it comes to grafting her belly or, where her, legs are, it will give you option. You could do this or you could do this. This one will look the best. This one is the fastest, option, so that you can make your choice of what you want to do. I think for all of them I grafted in pattern because I think that kind of looks the best. And she is stuffed very firmly. She is stuffed with an entire 12-ounce bag of fiberfill that I just got at Joann's, but it took the entire bag, and she is, stuffed really full because she will stand up on her own. So, you have to really, stuff, especially like her legs, like join. That has to be, stuffed very, very firmly. And then I knit this little shawl to go, for her, a little sheep-sized shawl. Shetland shawl. The yarn that came in the kit was kind of a pink, their pink lace weight. And it was fine. I just wanted her to have a red shawl. So this is what some unspun, or no, it is einbond. It is the lace weight Icelandic that I had left over from a red shawl that I made for myself. So Sue has a matching shawl. Well, not quite matching, but same yarn. But it is a Shetland shawl. This little shawl was probably one of the most complicated lace things I have ever knit. And it was for a sheep, a stuffed sheep. But it was written out. I mean, this pattern dates back to, I think, 1990s somewhere. And Sam was charted. He was all cable patterns, and so he was charted. But this lace shawl was not charted. It was written out line by line, with the instructions. It's been a while since I have knit one of those with lace, but it was, perfect. There were no mistakes or anything. But it had in this section, like, I don't know, it starts at one corner and works out and then decreases back down. So you could knit like yourself a shawl to match this, people size, because it would just increase if you wanted to. And the entire thing was done, back and forth. So it looks very much like one of the shawls that are more popular, like now, that you do this like center triangle and then do a sideways edge, but it wasn't done like that. And also it was done, and this is where I say it's the most complicated Shetland shawl, because I've done ring shawls, I've done Hazel Carter shawls, I've done Orenburg shawls that turn corners, I've done Estonian shawls that turn corners. None of them had a corner turn quite like this. It goes around there. It is entirely short rowed. There were 47 rows of short rows written out instruction. I don't know. She is just like, and it was all like perfectly correct, but still 47 rows of short row lace for a sheep's shawl. But it was, it looks just incredibly, it's beautiful. So anyway, it was fun to do. And like this small little section, once you got kind of the repeats in your head, like once you got kind of fully into the main body lace stitch, and you by that time you were familiar with what you were doing for the edge, and so you just had to keep track. So she's got a little shawl. I just think it looks like adorable on her, and I love it in the red. The pink would have looked cute too, but I love it in the red. I don't know that I will be making her a wardrobe of little shawls, because one is enough. Oh, and the hardest part of this whole sheep was getting these ears on. Sam, the ram, has kind of big curly Q horns on, and I remember when I put the ears on him, so he's got ears, and then but I put like the horns, like, so it kind of holds them down, but I would put her ears on and they would just sort of stick out. They looked like little wings. I actually tied something around her to sort of train them down, and I was texting a friend and said, I just can't get the sheep's ears on, and I said, they look like wings, and she said, well, real sheep's ears kind of look like that, but I don't know. I think I like them now. So anyway, she is my knitted finished project, and I am, really happy. It looks so adorable. I have her and Sam sitting like by each other, and they look just so cute together. So the other kind of knitted finished project that I did, I I'll just have to show you pictures of, because they're already in place. But I did 36 knitted button covers for the drapes that I sewed for the yarn room. It was kind of the perfect little finishing touch. The drapes that I made, I'm so glad they are done. They were way more work than I was sort of expecting them to be. They took a lot longer, and they weren't really like complicated, difficult, in figuring them out. And it was just kind of this like big pieces of fabric, and it was a lot of crawling around on the floor. And so anyway, I'm going to show you the fabric, this beautiful sort of embroidered cotton. It's got these kind of big paisley and flowers. It's so beautiful. I fell like so in love with it. It is 100% cotton. It was made in India. I'm sure the embroidery was on, machine done, but quite luckily, the embroidery was done on the grain. So that helped a lot when I got to doing the, third and fourth panels, so that I could make sure that I could look and say, oh, I turned that up at the second swirl or something, so that they would all match across. So that helped me a lot. But they are interlined and interlined. And I did butterfly pleats at the top, and at each, like where the the butterfly pleat is tacked, I put a little button and covered with a little knitted cover. Those kind of, there's a couple different kinds of button, like covered button, do-it-yourself little things. One has a little kind of a little mold that you put your fabric in, and then the button top, and then you press down on it and to put the cover on. That did not work for either this fabric, because at first I thought, well, I will just use this fabric to cover it, but it's very sheer and the buttons are kind of shiny silver underneath. So you either had to put, just this alone, which didn't really look good because you could see the silver through it, or you had to put a little piece of the lining there, and that just made it really thick. Plus this embroidery in some places can get like really thick, and so that wasn't working. And then I got the other kind, which it's got like the little round kind of domed cover, and it has like little teeth that you kind of hook the fabric or the knitting onto, and then there's a little back that you slip on. You kind of just press it into place. So I found with that, I thought about doing, just with the white, and then it looked nice. It looked very kind of normal and ordinary. And then I thought, well, I could do, a different color. I had some of the blue eyelet left from the dress that I made this summer, and I put that up there, and that looked good because the walls are sort of an aqua color. They were very light Tiffany blue, and that looked okay, but not perfect. And then one night I thought of, I was looking at the yarn, I thought, I have all these different colors, wonder how I could get, I wish I could do little ones. And I thought I could knit little button covers, and so that's what I did. 36 of these, but because you needed it to be very thin fabric, I used the lace yarn, the bohus yarn, and I had all these colors of it from all the different kits. So, it's kind of a rainbow of colors, but it's a lace weight yarn. So, and I used 000 needles to get a really, really firm fabric so that it would cover and it wouldn't show this shiny silver through. And I think what I did is I cast on 6 and then increased out to like 14 and did 4 rows at 14 stitches, and then decreased back down and cast off. And that just gave me the right amount to just kind of, curl it over. It would catch on the little teeth around the edge of the button, and then it would, not be so thick and bulky that I could fit the backing on it. So I made 36 of those. Then I had to sew them all on, because at that point I had the curtains completed. Because I did the panels, I got one finished and then I did the other. I hadn't had this idea. I wanted to, tack down the pleats as I hung the curtains and trained them. So at the end I tied them all back up and I took them down, because I don't know if you know about training curtains. I remember my mom teaching me this actually when she made curtains for me when I moved into my first apartment, and she had them tied up and said that you have to train them, get them so they're pleated nicely, and you tie them with I just used the selvages from the fabric so that they were nice and soft. Ribbon would work, but somebody is texting. I'm not sure what that's about. But ribbon would work. I don't think I would use string or yarn or something like that would make kind of a mark where they're tied, because you don't want them to get wrinkled. But you do 3 places at the top, of the middle, and the bottom, and then they will learn to hang in nice pleats so that if they're opened and closed, they will return to hang it nice. Otherwise it can look like you just have a great big, you hung a sheet on your window. And I mean, and this goes for even if you just have purchased curtains, and you still should train them, so that they hang in nice, that they look pretty. So anyway, I tied them back up, took them down, and then sewed. It took a long time, 36 buttons to sew on. So I got those all up, and they look so pretty. I'm really, really pleased. It just, the white ones looked really pretty, and it looked, nice and a little elegant, a little more elegant. This with the knitted, colored buttons, it just makes it look a little more fun, and it's a yarn room, so it should be fun. I mean, it's an office too, but it's a yarn room. It was quite the process. I started out like sometimes what happens with your knitting, you start a sweater and then it morphs into something else or something. It kind of happened with these curtains. I found this fabric that I just loved. The very first fabric that I was going to get, it was like a linen-y sort of looking, but it had a patterning in it, was from Joann's, and I could not find enough of continuous yardage in it. I even went down to Milwaukee. They were supposed to have like 20 yards at one of the stores, and they didn't. And that fabric was a polyester blend. I think it had a high percentage of polyester. So my very original intention was to do full length drapes in that room. And then I had found this fabric and I liked it, and it had this polyester content, and I have hot water heat, so I have baseboard radiators. And I started thinking, even with a cotton lining, I was worried, that the polyester would melt or whatever in the winter. Because once it's February and I crank the boiler up, it gets way below 0 Fahrenheit, and I crank the boiler up to a high temperature. I just worried about that a little bit. And so I thought, well, and there was like some furniture kind of in the way, and I thought perhaps I should just do kind of apron length, what they call apron length. It goes to the bottom of the woodwork. I have very strong drapery opinions, and they're not exactly the same as like what some of the experts out there, some of the decorating blogs and things say. You have to have the curtain rod at least 5 inches above the window frame, and you have to have it 12 inches on the sides of the window frame. I have opinions. Decided to do apron length, and this is a 60s ranch house, and so it just sort of seemed like appropriate for the style of the house and the age and everything. So I was decided to do apron length. I think I talked last week that I ended up going from 2 times fullness to 3 times fullness, and I'm happy. I don't think I would have been as pleased with them if they had been less full. So anyway, so after that I decided to do the apron length. I watched this Craftsy class, which I highly, highly recommend if sewing curtains is something that you're thinking about doing. It's by Susan Woodcock, and I don't get any kind of kickback off of Craftsy or anything, so this is just, I really, really learned a lot from it. She was very good teacher. She was very clear and straightforward and sort of anticipated questions. Like she would be talking about something, and in my head I'd be thinking, yeah, but what if you're going to do this? And then like 2 seconds later she'd say, and if you are doing this, here's what you do. So it was very thorough, and so anyway, and she goes through several different types of curtains. She does grommet curtains, which I hate that name, that we call them grommet curtains. In England they call them eyelet curtains, which sounds so much nicer. But she did grommet curtains, gathered curtains, which I really had never heard about, kind of and then like pleated curtains and different kind of pleats. So the gather curtains use a shearing tape, and there's all these different kinds. There's like, pencil pleated ones that just kind of gather, but then there's ones that look like smocking, and there's just all kind of like ones that look like diamond kind of patterns. And I thought, well, that would be kind of cool because I didn't want to do like a valance or anything like that. And I did do curtains. I thought of some really cool, like hobbled Roman shades. Like I could picture them in my head, and I think they would have looked really neat in there. But I was not confident that I'd be able to execute them correctly. And also, I was worried about how they were going to actually get hung because they would have to have an outside mount because of the windows that are in there. And I just was not sure that I could I would have to do it myself, and I just didn't think that I would be able to do it. I ended up using what was in there before that I ripped down were these vertical blinds, which were just horrible. But before the vertical blinds were in there were curtains when it had been a bedroom. And I somehow managed to find them. I looked and looked for them, but I found the curtain rods down in the basement, the original Kirsch traverse rods, and the marks that go in the wall were still in the wall. So I knew I could get those up and get them up straight and level, and it would work. So that's why I went with the curtains and kind of that kind of rod and everything. I found the rods down like outside pieces, but the little pieces that attach the rod to the wall, the little brackets, I could not find anywhere. I looked and looked, and quite honestly, I might have thrown them away. Like at some point, they might have been in a desk drawer in there, and I came across them and thought, "What is this? And why is and pitched it?" But thank God for the internet, because I found, a place that had new old stock of these brackets that I needed, because Kirsch has like changed sort of the finish and everything. This was like the exact color of the kind of creamy white color that the originals had and stuff. And my phone in there, I've also had to find a cord that like would attach like an extension cord kind of thing that had a male to female connector, and I couldn't find it anywhere here. So I found that online. So that's a lifesaver to find some of that old stuff. So anyway, I managed to the first curtain I did, I had the lining and I had the fabric, and I did one panel, and I put on a shearing tape. And so this is the shearing tape. It comes like this, and then you like pull these strings and it like gathers it up. And this was like a smocking tape, and I thought, oh, that'll look pretty and stuff. And I got them up, and I hung them, and I was like, oh, I thought, well, okay, I'll train them. And I like tried to make them into folds and train them. And that whole night I didn't sleep because the fabric was expensive. It was like a big gulp when I told her, like to cut all this, fabric and stuff. And I wanted them to look like they, like weren't some, homemade thing. And I didn't like them. So I didn't sleep much that night, and I kept thinking, well, it could be, is it the header? Is it the length? Is it the lining? Is it, what is it that will make these better? So the first thing I did in the morning is I took them down and I ripped off the shearing tape, because I thought maybe what I need to do is just do like pleats. And when she in this Craftsy class, she goes through like 5 different kinds of pleats, not just the regular kind of like three-fingered French pleat, but all these different kinds, and how to like tack them, sew them by hand. And all of the sewing on these drapes is pretty much by hand. I think the only thing done on the machine is the putting the extra width on, to make the panels wider. The hem of the lining was done by machine, and then the pleats, the actual sewing of the pleats, was done on machine. So let's see. So anyway, so I ripped this out and I went and I got some buckram, because that's what you use to stiffen the heading when you're going to do pleated drapes. You put this, it's like a thick kind of an interfacing kind of thing that you put in, and it will hold, it helps like to hold it, make it stiffen it. So I got some of that, and I sewed that panel with it, and immediately thought, okay, I like that better. So that was good, but it still was not quite right. And I trained them, and kept looking at them, and it was something about, I don't know if I chose the wrong kind of lining. It's drapery lining, and it's 100% cotton. It just, I don't know, everything seemed a little flimsy. So the next day I went back to Joann's, and I bought inner lining for just one panel and enough buckram for the rest of the panels, because I knew I was going to pleat them. But I thought maybe what they need is inner lining, and that's like a flannelly sort of fabric that you put in between the two. And I also thought I was kind of on the fence about doing it originally. Well, first off, I wanted to be able to see all of this pretty, like texture on this. So I was worried that would sort of I didn't want to do anything like a blackout line. It doesn't need to be black in there anyway, because nobody's going to sleep in there. But I was worried about it obscuring all the pretty pattern, which is why I didn't do it in the first place. But I was also thinking it might be good because that's the end of the house, and it gets the north winds in the winter. And so having an extra, that flannel like in there, would make it a little more insulated. So anyway, I got enough for one panel, and so I did the second panel to match that and put in the inner lining and hung those up, and that was it. The inner lining doesn't hide. In fact, it kind of makes the light more diffused, and you just see that patterning like just show. It kind of glows from the light. It just is so beautiful. So then I knew, okay, this is it. So then I had to do the other two panels, and the third panel, really, I got bogged down in like trying to get it to match and worrying it wasn't going to match, and that one was the hardest one to get through. The fourth one was okay, and then I had to take that first one down and take it all apart, because the inner lining gets folded into the side hems. So I didn't have to take the bottom hems down, but I had to take the side hems down and re-sew those by hand. So, and so the little buttons made the perfect finishing touch. And now I've waxed poetic on the drapes for a long time. Last week I put up 6 episodes that were recorded between July and October, the beginning of October. So I know some people have seen them. I know people watched the first one and a lot of people watched the last one, but not so many the in between ones. There's a camp one that you should go watch, because there are like pretty things, like not made by me. But I highly recommend you subscribing someplace on YouTube or iTunes, so that you get notified when a new podcast goes up. I think sometimes the iTunes is delayed a little bit. I'm not really sure how, why that works. It just happens sometimes. I don't really have any control over it. But if you subscribe on YouTube, they do send out a notification when things are uploaded. That is about all that I have. I talked for way longer than I thought of. I will probably cut out a lot of the drapery talk because this is a knitting podcast, not a sewing podcast. It was funny. I didn't knit much throughout September and the beginning of October when I was really working on the room, when I was painting and when I was, doing the drapes and, doing all the stuff. I didn't knit that much. I didn't really feel like knitting that much. But Friday when I finished sewing on, the buttons and I hung the drapes back up and I kind of walked around and looked at everything and I came out here and I went, oh, I should knit on my bows. And I have been knitting on it nonstop ever since. So I don't know what that is. I just felt like, that was all put aside for a while. And I really want to delve in and do some fun projects. The next sewing project I'm going to do is a dress. I can talk more about that another time. But anyway, until I see you next week or whenever the next podcast will be, I'm thinking it will still be every week because I have so much to tell you about. So anyway, till I see you next time, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.